Live Weather at 6.
Welcome in here to Mississippi Live Weather at 6. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Laupon. Thank you so much for joining us. The jacket is off just because I'm warm, not because things have gotten worse, though we are continuing to watch some locations where severe weather does look a little bit more likely as we progress into this evening. Some of the latest data has trended slightly farther north. But again, as we've talked about, I think repeatedly here, the peak threat remains solidly to the south. Our meteorologist Gabe Maynard will talk to here in a few minutes with some damage video coming in from a little bit south of us. You'll see in this part of the state only on Mississippi Live Weather. So a lot to talk about here over the next few minutes. Again, big headlines this evening. I think number one, again, strongest storms stay south. Last thing I want anybody to do is say we're hyping anything. So let's be clear here. The strongest storms stay south for the most part. As we progress through this evening, though, the threat does continue for a few locations, and projections have trended a little farther north. More on the locations in a moment as we're comparing those rotation tracks. Multiple projections here are HRRR, our strike model, where it's placing those different things. A look you'll only see here on Mississippi Live here in a moment. But hour by hour forecast, again, we're 50% on that coverage of storms at 7, 60% by 10, 70% by 1 o'clock in the morning. So clear just looking at that. The likelihood of thunderstorms will increase over the course of the next few hours here, and that does mean the likelihood of seeing severe thunderstorms as well. Our severe risk area, as outlined at this instant, you can see really is for locations, again, south there of Montgomery County, Webster County, Clay County is where it is the greatest. That's not to discount the green area, but that is to say that the greatest number of reports, and in particular when we start talking about a tornado threat, the most likely locations will be locations there to the south. As you can see, the tornado risk there, those spots. But the big headline, I cannot say this enough, is as far as strong tornadoes are concerned, that is not something we are concerned about with this. Mississippi Live Weather Radar, again, its latest scans, this is all just rain on Mama Justice radar here, okay? So it's just rain. In saying that, yes, there are some thunderstorms that we are watching. It depends on which projection, which of these radars you're looking at. You got to get one close enough. The one that we were looking at a little bit ago there, kind of working its way there toward Greenville, is almost completely fallen apart over the last little bit here. So a good sign in that regard, hopefully something that does continue to take shape. But as we look back there into Louisiana, it's pretty clear to see one of those. We're kind of at the edge of where that Jackson radar is going to have a good look at it here. Previously with the tornado warning, this is a pretty stout storm. It's still a long, long way. So I mean, how far away? We're talking from the Jackson radar, 150 miles. So that's looking super high up, which is why a strong return on that so high up is important, because this one's pretty hefty there in Louisiana. So why do I point that out? If you were to just kind of extrapolate that forward there, that eventually could end up getting into our area. Now, the speed on it kind of depends. I didn't actually work out the speed specifically on here, so I think that might be still a little bit fast on that. So give me a moment to double check that. Time of arrival with storm speed 50. Instead, let's go closer to 40 miles per hour. Let's go and clean that up for you. So 40 mile per hour storm speed, and let's clean that up. So, just again, very, very general look at when those storms get a little bit closer. At 40-ish miles per hour, it's about 3-ish hours away from getting there, kind of southwest portion of our area. So that'd be 7, 8, 9 o'clock, kind of on the early end. Some projections do have that holding together deeper into our area, and so that is a concern. We have had some other tornadoes across other parts of the state. I do want to bring in our meteorologist, Gabe Maynard, here behind the scenes. I'll actually pop up our multi-monitor here. Are you ready on the picture, on the video there? Is that in and ready to go? Not yet? Okay. I'll try to, you give me a thumbs up there when we have that, and we will look at that here in a minute, because unfortunately some other locations around the state have seen some issues with that as well. So strong tornadoes, though, even in those locations, not something that we have seen. So let's look here at our triple threat, something you'll only see here on Mississippi Live. And as you can see, at least some of these projections do have some rotation tracks with them. And I bet it's pretty crystal clear which storms we're watching. It's those ones back into Louisiana. But between now and 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, we have, for the most part, weaker tracks of really anything rotating, with the exception, again, of some of that stuff back into Louisiana, and a few of those storms that do get in the southwest portion of our area. So the storms exist. Now it's just a matter of whether or not they are going to maintain themselves. But the big takeaway, not a lot of damaging wind outside of that. not a lot of hail outside of that. And that means for the most part, for most of us, not a lot of severe weather outside of that. So again, this storm system, we're watching this front, as we talked a lot about at 5. We're not going to spend as much time talking about that here at 6 o'clock. But we have a lot of that warmer air, again, trying to push northward. It's more moist, more unstable air, and it's going to try to force this front to slide a little farther to the north over the next few hours here. Futurecast, for the most part, keeps the most significant storms down to our south, but wouldn't it all be shocking if a few of these, again, back in Louisiana, 10, 11 to midnight, were a little stronger into our area. And I'll tell you this, looking at this version of Futurecast versus the one we showed you a second ago, it's a lot less aggressive as far as that's concerned. Big takeaway is this. Most models keep most of this south, but if you get close enough, that we're going to have to, again, continue to watch it for a few spots into this evening. And again, appreciate all of you for sticking with us here. I do, before we move on, want to bring up weather call. And you might ask, why does he keep talking about this? It's very, very simple. Because things change. This is a forecast, but a realistic way in which things, end up all lining up could end up being a little bit different. Weather call will call you if you're actually in that danger zone. It is a $15 charge with that. You can snap a screenshot and sign up there at our website as well. There's also a link in the app. If you don't want to leave what we're talking about here, I understand that. But it calls you for tornadoes, calls you back if they're confirmed. And here's the thing. This morning, we did have a confirmed tornado on the southern fringe of our area. And so if you weren't up and watching and you didn't have weather call and you didn't have Mississippi Live weather app, you didn't get alerted. So make sure to sign up for weather call for the very latest on that. And of course, we do also have our chat ongoing, available again for all those folks there wanting to know about Dumas, wanting to know about all these other locations there. Saying I definitely have fun in a storm. I disagree. It's that Thomas the Tank Engine, a very useful engine thing. That's the way we approach it. Of course, we'll be talking a little bit more about where those rotating thunderstorms are most likely, using all of our projections here in Mississippi Live Weather here in a minute. But the conversation continues into this evening. Tomorrow, it will not be about severe weather. It'll be about, feels quite a bit cooler. As you can see, from 58 at 6 a.m., we'll be 59 degrees by 9 a.m., and then we're heading only low 60s there. Midday high temperatures before those northwest winds remain breezy, and they continue to drop into the evening. We're 40s, and we expect those low temperatures for more than a couple days going forward will actually be back in the mid-20s, and that means we're down below freezing, and that end of winter is something more that we're looking at there as well. By the way, I see Brenda asking if she wants to check to see if they have weather call. If you've signed up for weather call, you should be able to go to weathercallservices.com. Like weather call, the word, one word, and then services.com, and you should be able to log in there and check and see if you do have it there. As you can see, Aretha Smith says have it and wouldn't do without it. Appreciate that. What you shouldn't do without is our latest look at the rotation tracks and where those are most likely to push into our area. That's as Mississippi Live Weather continues here from the Room to Room Weather Center right after this.
At First Choice Bank, we know you can't always make it before the bank closes. With our integrated teller, you can talk to a live person as late as 7 p.m. on weekdays and noon on Saturdays. It's not just an ATM, it's an ITM. First Choice Bank, your choice for banking.
When choosing a dentist for our family, Tupelo Smiles was the answer for us. They greet us with warm smiles right when we walk in the door, and they make us feel so welcome. We love Tupelo Smiles.
As a bankruptcy firm, Mitchell, Cunningham, and Bowling realizes many people are worried about their finances. We're here to guide you through the next steps to restart your life with easy video appointments. New clients don't have to leave home to get information about becoming debt-free. Also, convenient in-office appointments are available at the low cost of $340 upfront for a Chapter 13. You can be on your way to being debt-free. Contact Mitchell, Cunningham, and Bowling today or visit our website at mcdebtfree.com. We are here to help you.
This portion of Mississippi Live Weather is presented by Little's Jewelers.
Right now, from the Room to Room Weather Center, here's Mississippi's Chief Meteorologist, Matt Lovhawn.
Again, looking at the latest here related to our storms. We're outside in Oxford at this instant, and the very latest look on the camera there with the North Mississippi Storm Chasers. Appreciate them for being big partners with us here on Mississippi Live Weather. I do want to bring it over to our meteorologist, Gabe Maynor, who has a look at some damage issues that we had earlier on today. And Gabe, one of the things that certainly we're looking at, obviously, we're thankful that we haven't had more up here, but in South Mississippi and down to the south, there have been other issues, right?
Exactly what we've been saying in regards to the highest tornado potential remaining further towards our south. And we did get video, I mentioned at 5 o'clock, trying to work on getting it, officially got it in. And this is a look at Laurel. And I'm going to pull up the video here. And Matt, if my audio goes off, feel free to pull it back up. But as we take a look yes, this is down in Laurel. This is submitted by Jason Campbell. You can see the rotating storm there on the top of your screen. Now that did go across a John Deere parking lot, damaging the sign, and you'll see some damage pictures there at the end. But notice how it goes behind these buildings. You start to see some stuff falling once again, some of that roof being ripped off and some limbs and trees being knocked over as a result. Now this, you can see the timestamp, 8:48 a.m. in southern Mississippi. So some folks just getting the day started. And this, of course, another look at it from one of the other security cams. And yeah, you can see pretty clear as day that on the ground.
No question what that is, Gabe, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so submitting that, and of course his comment on this was, yeah, it's a little bit more than a wind gust. And I think that's a fair assessment. And as it goes off there in the distance, you can see some of that debris being lofted into the air, especially at the end of this video right here. Give it 1 second. There you go. Some of those pieces just being over the treetops right there. So lofting it. Now, is this an intense tornado? No, it was definitely on the lower end of the scale, but nonetheless a tornado. And you can see some of the damage that's left behind. And of course, that is currently being cleaned up there in Laurel. And of course, some of those limbs being knocked off as well. So Matt, we can bring it back here to the Room to Room Weather Center. And of course, this is, one of the many damage reports that we've gotten down in South Mississippi. North Mississippi, so far, we've been pretty good, and knock on wood that does continue into those evening hours as well.
Hopefully it does. Appreciate that. That's our meteorologist, Gabe Maynard, working to get that for you. And as we bring it back in here to the latest look on Mississippi Live Weather Radar, again, that tornado report this morning, most of the damage reports this morning as well. The purple boxes you see behind me, those associated with flash flood warnings, still have one of those out there for Forest County at this time. There's just been a lot of storms. We talked about how sometimes you get this, that we said build the wall. We didn't say what the wall would actually do. And for some folks where it was there, it just really dumped a ton of rainfall, some of those spots. And that's what they've had down there in Hattiesburg. I mentioned North Mississippi Storm Chasers, but in this case, it's an all Mississippi thing. They have a camera down there in the Hattiesburg area as well. Been quite a bit of lightning on this the last hour. Not as much showing up at this time, but I mean, it's just a vastly different scenario than what we have up here. I mean, I saw a little flash, I think, on that water tower there a moment ago related to that, but looks like things are a little calmer than they were even 20 minutes ago. But look at this measure of moisture, that dew point at 68. I pull that up because when you compare that, for example, to what we have up in Oxford, where the dew point is, say, what, 59. I mean, that's almost 10 degrees difference as far as that's concerned. That's a huge difference, and that's the reason why, fortunately for us and unfortunately for other folks, the severe weather threat is primarily to the south. Let's kind of bring it back here. We'll kind of slide back up here to North Mississippi on there. So all these showers, again, they just remain fairly light and are likely to stay that way. The severe weather threat, as we talked about at the top, and we need to, again, address again one more time here, continues to be primarily for locations to the south. And we always show this risk. This is a good example of showing you that, again, more reports of severe weather, less reports of severe weather. Typically toward the center of one of these risk areas, that's where we have the greatest number of reports, and certainly that has been the case so far today. So with that in mind, that's why when we analyze the different threats going forward this evening, we remain fairly low on the likelihood of a brief spin-up tornado. Not impossible, one spot in particular, strong wind gusts, a limited hail threat also, and again, that flash flooding risk certainly maximized for locations down to the south. And so, as I look over here on the chat, I see Aura asking the question, what's happening in Starkville tonight? To answer that, we're going to look at our rotation tracks here. We'll be able to zoom in good and close. So because of that, I think we'll also pop the chat up here at the same time. And again, you can get the app for the latest. Again, easiest way to kind of bring up the video, the chat on Facebook and YouTube as well. So let's look here on storm rotation. And again, we're watching those storms back into Louisiana. This is our HRRR model. and you can clearly see that the majority of that activity back in near the Mississippi River by 9 p.m. and the majority of it down here closer to Yazoo City, just south of our area by 10 to 10:30. Now, if you look closely here, you do see a few of those rotation tracks, including that one pretty pronounced there close to Canton, very close to where we, of course, had that tornado touchdown there east of Canton, west of Carthage earlier today. And so this is a fairly pronounced tornado track. What is it seeing? If I look at this, I can see a pretty well-defined kind of line here. So this is more of like a line that does have some rotation with it. And so for folks watching in, say, Starkville or Greenwood, or I've seen Winona and Tupelo pop on there, this is likely south of all those locations. Now, it is close-ish to Winona, so I expect you're more likely to see rumbles, but in all likelihood, this probably stays just barely south of most of our area. But watching this closely for Kosciuszko, and I do have a different projection that will be a closer call for some of our locations here in just a moment, looking at our strike model, but might be a little too far north. Now, here's an important takeaway. Do you see how the red stripes break? Right? We had stripe number 1 right here that kind of lifted through, and then strike number 2 that kind of developed and lifted more toward Louisville. They're a little bit out of sync there. That means the initial storm weakens and a new area of circulation develops. Now, typically when that happens, the overall rotations of both those are a little bit weaker. So will these be spinning storms? Yes. Are we going to be watching them? Yes. That's the reason I have that app, of course, below me here, is to remind you that, if alerts, come through, we'll be on here on the app and we'll let you know what's going on there. But for Layla there asking, what about Eupora? This is probably south of you in Eupora as well. So we're 1 o'clock in the morning. We're 2 o'clock in the morning. Again, most of the activity south of us here, looking at storm rotation. And these do pick up a little bit more out in the Alabama, a little bit after that there. And even some showers you can see lingering into tomorrow morning. So it will be cooler with the rainfall and obviously a little bit breezier as well. So I'm looking at storm rotation here on our strike model. First thing I want you to take away is you see this. Okay. So Eupora, you were asking just a moment ago, who is that in Eupora? Asking a moment ago there, Layla or Marcellus there in Choctaw County or Louisville. I mean, this is close to some of those folks. Let's go back to radar for just a moment here. So here's that. I'm going to take this back to our national radar composite. Then we're going to come back onto that. So national radar. So what do I not see up here? I don't see anything up here in this zone that looks even remotely as strong as what this is showing here. So the takeaway being that any rotation here, while we might have some rotation, it's not the kind that's going to get anywhere near the surface. So that's the first takeaway looking at rotation tracks. The second one is that what it does do a good job of is it has a few of these stronger thunderstorms back there toward Vicksburg down there that would be on a track that would get them closer. So I'm going to keep that in here. But as you can see, the kind of initial batch of those thunderstorms probably weakening before it gets as strong as what we're indicating there. I do get concerned that if we in this next few hours here get a few of these storms a little stronger there, they do have a tendency to kind of hold on a little bit longer with the rotation moving a little more deeply into our region there. And actually, hold on a second. I know exactly what this is doing. There we are. Yeah, that's kind of painting that on. I think it might have been a little behind on it. It is interesting to see that that has one this strong, this far north up there close to Monroe County. I think that this is a little too far north. I want Gabe's opinion. Hop in front of Bam here for a second, Gabe. We'll talk about this for a moment. That seems north. Seems really... Oh, hold on. Apparently, if you got to make sure you click back there into the thing. We're gonna have to get you chat on a different computer.
My fault. No,
okay.
You're exactly right though.
That's okay.
I think that this does trend a little bit north. Whenever we were comparing it between the 5 and the 6 on the positioning of our models, a lot of it with, how we compare models is we take the model, we take what's happening currently, put those side by side, and wherever that's lining up, we kind of dictate how we go about it from there on out. Well, a large part of our energy and a large part of these storms still going to be primarily south. Really south of our viewing area, Attala, Winston, and Oxby County, a little bit more north of that line. So I would move this about a county south based off of my assessments behind the scenes. And I mean, you're seeing that currently. So I think that we're both in agreement that, that's where things sit.
Okay, I want to re-rack this. You know what I think this is? I think that's a warm front hugger. I think it's trying to hug the warm front, and sometimes that happens and it produces tornadoes, and other times it just spins and it can't get that rotation to the surface. I think that's what this is, because that, if you imagine the warm front moving northward and a storm kind of tracking along that warm front, that's probably what that is. Let's take a look at that. Let's look more detail at that. Appreciate that, Gabe. That's good analysis there. So as we kind of bring it back in here, that's kind of what I'm looking at. I'm looking at this here, and we're going to re-rack this. We're going to replay this graphic here. So I'm going to take it out of play and put it right back in play, because for whatever reason, decided to put the cloud cover on top of there. So we're going to take it completely out of play, and we're going to get rid of that. So let's get rid of that cloud cover. Okay, so again, it has some thunderstorms out there right now that aren't there. Okay, so here's why coming in here and looking at this is important. While that is a warm front hugging storm, there are too many storms versus reality right now on radar there. So it shows the warm front being a little bit sharper than the reality of the situation is. And so, yeah, this does have a storm that gets on the front, and if it attaches the front, has that rotation continue for a while as well. So when you see that red stripe there for storm rotation, that's why I'm less concerned about it. Now I'm looking at this than I was just a second ago. Getting in close, taking the time, that's a less likely scenario there. So hopefully that remains the case. But watching these back to the west, this could be a slightly greater scenario, because we do have those storms. We have had those tornado warnings and everything back out here into northern Louisiana and some of the same spots there. So we do show a couple of those rotating thunderstorms still holding together, and one or two there closer to, say, Winona. Doesn't have much rotation on that one, but does have one on the one just slightly farther west in this 9, 10, 11 o'clock time period there. So still a few rotation tracks that we'll have to watch. The majority of this, that's not the case, and if this really does fill in with this much rainfall, the majority of these showers that we're looking at here should be, I think, non-rotation. All the rotation we show on there is from earlier thunderstorms as opposed to later ones. Yeah, and by tomorrow morning, the majority of that exits out to the east. So takeaway, in my opinion, I'm a little underwhelmed versus my initial look at that. So again, here is the kind of cleaner, just rainfall track to show you the majority of the activity south, as we've talked about. But as some of those projections have, a few of these thunderstorms still could be spinning as they move northward. I think spinning and producing tornadoes are two separate things. I think this is probably a little slow, but the big takeaway should be most locations in North Mississippi will not see severe weather and tornadoes tonight, but we will see another round of rumbles. I wouldn't be shocked if that obviously shook some folks up. Anytime we're talking about a tornado chance and that happens, certainly that is the case. And that's why we want to build our armor, make sure we have multiple ways to find out if we are in the danger zone. The Mississippi Live Weather app is, of course, one component to that. That's why we have the QR codes there. But Weather Call, Code Red, NWS Weather Radio, a lot of other different ways that you have mentioned that you get your alerts, all different ways, all good, all ways to try to build that armor. Mainly overnight, though, as you can see, majority of the activity once we get beyond midnight should primarily be to the south, but we'll be watching things nonetheless. Low temperatures will be in the mid-50s there for early tomorrow. We should typically be in the mid-30s, so we're going to be running way above normal again for tomorrow, as again we'll probably be about 56 in Grenada, 56 degrees in Eupora, 59 Macon, and 58 degrees there in Louisville. Pretty warm for this time of the year. Then lighter showers on the backside of the system. As it kind of sweeps away from us, you'll continue to have, again, some of those sprinkles around, and much cooler temperatures. Those temperatures drop in a significant way as we progress throughout the next 12 to 24 hours or so, and that's definitely going to cool us down. Now, I do see someone there. Gabe, you're probably looking in the background there. Whoever that is on YouTube, you might comment toward them to find out. They mentioned a tree fell on someone's house. You're a local Mississippian. We'll find out about that in a little more detail as well. So Gabe will have an update on that coming up here in a couple of minutes. But the northwest winds behind this tomorrow, obviously showing us the severe weather is a tonight thing. By tomorrow, it's all out of here. So high temperatures, not that far removed from low temperatures, a lot cooler than we were today, especially for locations in the northwest part of the state, but 64 in Houston, 65 in Starkville, and 66 there in Macon. I mean, that's not that far off. It will be less humid and so the stickiness factor down about 10 different notches from where we're at this point here. Looking into your Saturday night, again, rogue showers not impossible, but we stay mostly dry. I know we've talked a lot about the next 24 hours. Let's kind of hit the rest of it here for a moment if we could. And then continuing to show, again, high pressure building in and drier air behind this storm system with much cooler temperatures eventually in the extended forecast associated with that. Sunday morning, starting off with temperatures are going to be probably down into the mid 30s. So yeah, this is what we expect. I mean, look at that 30-year average above my head there, 34 degrees. We're a lot closer to that by your Sunday morning. And by Sunday afternoon, looking at temperatures, it'll probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of only the upper 40s. So yeah, that is back below normal, a sign of the cooler temperatures that have moved in by then. Here's a look at that 7-day forecast, and again, showing that, again, only 40s for highs on Sunday as well as Monday. We're mid-50s as we look toward Tuesday of next week, but look at these lows. Down cold enough that you need to be preparing accordingly. We've mentioned this last few days. Folks at Absolute Cleaning and Restoration have these little on your outside spigots and make sure that they don't freeze. Kind of a cool thing here, but certainly recommend that you kind of pick these up and you know, they're giving them away to folks that can't afford to buy them on their own. You can use just a towel and tie it around. I did a little video on that earlier on this year, but just something to protect those, just to make sure we don't have some freezing issues. I think we could have some spots where that's a little rough from Monday and Tuesday morning before temperatures moderate a little bit, but next week, and in the extended forecast, we're not talking severe, we're talking considerably cooler temperatures. A little bit more on that, and we'll answer some of your questions looking around the region here on that chat as Mississippi Live Weather continues here from the Room to Room Weather Center in 60 seconds.
When you've been injured, don't settle for a lawyer who doesn't even know where you live. Call Langston and Lott. Local lawyers, personal service, real results.
Out with the old and in with the new. It's time to save big at Room to Room's New Year's sale. Store-wide markdowns 50 to 70% off, no tax, 48-month special financing. It's a new year at Room to Room Furniture in Tupelo. There's no place like home.
So on the wide shot here, as you can see, temperature outlook, we kind of referenced this a moment ago. Much cooler temperatures on the way behind this storm system, much drier air moving in as well. The outlook there from January 15th, January 19th, cooler across the southeastern United States and closer to normal as we look toward really the, the 8 to 14 day time period there. So definitely some much cooler temperatures on the way in eventually here. But I do want to bring our meteorologist Gabe Maynor back here, and he's been kind of analyzing some things behind the scenes, and it sounds like, again, as we're talking about the severe weather potential, that things could ratchet back up. As we've talked about, it sounds like the folks at Storm Prediction Center are thinking the same as well.
Yeah, Storm Prediction Center leaning toward going with a watch, according to the National Weather Service down in Jackson. It's not exactly imminent, so it's not going to be overhead right now, but it is possible in another hour or so. Also, talking to the National Weather Service in Jackson, they don't have any specifics on areas or times, but they were hinting at it potentially going long into the overnight hours, but I do expect that to be more South Mississippi than north based on my personal opinion, and this is not a severe thunderstorm watch. This is a tornado watch that they're discussing.
Okay, and so that would be later on into the overnight hours, and so we knew we do have some folks outside of here. This is where I'm going to talk about weather call again. Anytime it's overnight, you need weather call. As the Mississippi Live Weather app should be one of your layers, but you need a call. Because as I'm talking here, I get text messages, I get alerts, and I ignore the overwhelming majority of them. And I do that because you can. But if my wife wants to call, my phone will ring. And so that phone alert that can bust through the do not disturb is what you need to wake you up in case you find yourself under a tornado warning. Now, most of us in North Mississippi, that will not be the case. Really, the northern half of the state is largely in okay shape. I would say certainly the northern third, which is where most of our counties are, is overall in good shape. But certainly watching that potential that perhaps a tornado watch could be issued and might clip some of our counties. I think it's closer to the Jackson area in particular that we're worried about that. But you don't have to worry about any of that as long as you have weather call. As we bring it back in here, we check again that risk area, and I think one of the big headlines for tonight, yes, there's a tornado risk there, but even to the south, a significant tornado risk is not something that we are dealing with out of this. So if you kind of missed the front end of the broadcast, here's what you need to know in 60 seconds. For most of us up here in the northern part of the state, this is just rainfall, but there will be more thunder, there will be more lightning, there will be more rainfall over the next few hours as storms that are back out into locations in Louisiana start moving northward. What we have in place is we have a frontal boundary that's kind of extending over top of us. What we call, sometimes you'd call it a cold front, but ultimately I would call it more of a warm front because it is stalling and it will start lifting back northward. You can see that change there. And so wherever it lands, there will be some isolated severe weather and tornado potential as we go into this evening and tonight. So our severe threats as they stand at this hour, again, confidence remains low here in the northern part of the state on a spin-up tornado, not impossible. Strong wind gusts, low confidence, but not impossible. And hail, low confidence, but not impossible. Some flash flooding, the greatest of those different confidence levels. And we know that you've had a lot of questions that you've been asking here behind the scenes, most of them about specific locations. Again, the northern part of the state, not in a significant severe weather threat. Central Mississippi, South Mississippi, though, would not at all be shocked to see a tornado watch issue within the next couple of minutes. That's your overview in about 60 seconds. Now, let's go through some of your comments here. You better answer the phone when your wife calls. You'll end up in the doghouse. You're absolutely right. That's why I almost always answer the phone when my wife calls. But luckily, she knows better than to typically call me when I'm on the air, so that certainly helps all of us out there. Do you need to plan to shelter if we live in a mobile home in Saltillo? You need to plan for the future, but not tonight. If you're in Saltillo, I would not be concerned about that potential for tornadoes to be this far north tonight. I just don't have a high level of confidence as far as that is concerned. In saying that, I do want to be crystal clear about something here. When it comes to mobile homes, they are never safe in any tornado. So if we're talking a tornado is likely or could be moving in at some point in the near future, we need to get out. In the state of Mississippi, you are more than 20 times more likely to be killed if you're impacted, if you're hit in a tornado versus in a mobile home versus if you're in a site-built structure. And that is scientific research, fatality data, not something that can be made up. You can ask friends and family of those that have been killed. One of the spots that airs here on Mississippi Live Weather is from a woman named Elizabeth Herndon, and she'd be the first to tell you that they thought that maybe theirs was strong enough that it was tied down, and unfortunately they learned in the tornado that started there west of Amory and moved through that it was not the case. So it is never safe to be in a mobile home when there's a tornado. But to specifically answer your question there related to this, and again, appreciate the bravery to ask a question like that. I believe that was Pastor's wife there through 3711 on YouTube. You never want to be in a tornado if there's, you never want to be in a mobile home if there's a tornado, but there will not likely be a tornado as far north as Saltillo tonight. Now, if your location was, say, Kosciuszko, we need to be paying much, much closer attention. Or Canton, I'd say it's a lot more likely for locations down there. You've already had one close by as far as today is concerned. Again, questions about Choctaw County, about Duck Hill, the Elliott area there, about Smithville. I would say Ackerman, Starkville, down there closer to Choctaw County. You're much more likely to see a rotating storm get close, but even for you, the main severe weather threat is primarily to the south. So Lane, primarily south. And when we're talking about Smithville, you're probably just far enough north that the worst is probably a little bit to the south of you as well. Again, Amory, I'd say same story. I know that the concern that a lot of folks around you feel because of significant tornadoes that many of us have experienced over the years, I would say, again, the worst is primarily south. We kind of bring it back here on Mississippi Live Weather Radar, and again, kind of show that on the wider shot here. We're looking to Louisiana for those storms to get a lot stronger over the next couple of hours here, and that's when we get more concerned, and we'll obviously know a lot more as these storms move a little bit closer. The cool thing about what we do here is that we are able to come on whenever as necessary. So while our next scheduled live broadcast is for 10 p.m. tonight, if for whatever reason something becomes significant or we have a tornado warning that's issued, we will be on here bringing you coverage in between now and that point and time. So we'll be monitoring things closely here in the Room to Room Weather Center. We appreciate everybody for supporting us here on Mississippi Live Weather as far as that is concerned. Before we sign off again here, I do one more time want to kind of call out in the best way possible those folks that have chosen to step out in faith and sponsor us here on Mississippi Live Weather. We have a lot of sponsors